ahead, ladies and gentlemen. More informative guests tomorrow, 11 to 3 Central, 12 noon to 4 p.m. Eastern. Coming up in the rebroadcast on the AM and FM dial, global shortwave, internet, satellite, free podcast at Infowars.com, and on the restreams. We had Red Beckman on, Patriot icon, for more than 2 hours. You'll definitely want to stay with us for that retransmission. Look, I know that most people know that Agent Orange is deadly, but it's now been declassified, and I have one of those recently declassified secret documents, Department of Veterans Affairs. This is Admiral E.R. Zumwalt Jr. I'd seen this, but it was brought back to my attention, and the fact that Monsanto, the folks that bring us all the GMO food that have natural pesticides in it so the bugs can't eat it, then we eat it. The studies show it kills the rats, has them have organ failure, and we're eating this. They know that this is happening. Why are they doing it? And you go back to Agent Orange. You know, I had some family, great, loving, wonderful family, Vietnam veteran, helicopter pilot, no history of any child deformities on either side of the family. And they had their wonderful firstborn son, clearly from Agent Orange, all the classic things. He died when he was a few years old. And you look at the numbers of doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and even more in southern Serbia, in Kosovo, in Iraq, in other areas where this is being used, at proving grounds. They know what DU's doing. But Monsanto's brought us aspartame. You can't make this stuff up. It is the excrement of a genetically engineered E. coli bacteria. They feed it toxic waste, certain forms of toxic waste. You don't believe me? Just fact, guys, Google aspartame manufacturing process. You'll be on university sites. And so a genetically engineered bacteria defecates, and then that's the toxic poison you drink that tastes so sweet. Kind of like another great example is, you know, your cat or dog will drink antifreeze. It's very sweet, the taste that kills. But we have the GMO trilogy, why genetically modified organisms threaten your health, the environment, and the future generations. But going back to Monsanto, the chemical company, they then split off, and you have the chemical division and then the division that's all closely interlocked for liability purposes with the GMO. They've now got their Smart Stack corn. It's going to be the biggest crop planted this year, replacing all their other main crops of corn, that has 6 pesticides in it and 2 other traits, 8 genetic traits total. But we go back to Agent Orange. They knew day one this was dioxin. They knew day one, and I have the report here, that it was massively more toxic than arsenic. In fact, I highlighted one copy of the report. Is this the one we highlighted? So I wanted to go over some of those areas. And this is what the Army knew all along. But they won't even give the vets the treatment they need. What does this tell you about the mindset of the elite that we have? What does this tell you about their mindset? I mean, this tells you everything you need to know. Linda K. May is an RN. She's worked with Dr. Doug Rocky. She came highly recommended from him. And she is an expert on toxic chemicals. She's worked in, I tried to go over all the things she's done. State of Illinois, Hazardous Materials Advisory Board certification, Fire Marshal, Site Manager, Hazardous Materials Site Manager, Department of Veterans Affairs, Hospital Safety, Fire Protection, University of Illinois, Department of Family Medicine, St. Louis University School of Medicine, multidisciplinary certificate in geriatrics. It goes on with all the things she's done. Associated Illinois Milk, Food, Environmental Research, pre-hospital. I mean, it just goes on. And she's been working with Dr. Doug Rocky for 30 years. It's good to have you on, Linda K. May.
Thank you.
I just kind of recap some of the things with Monsanto, but specifically with Agent Orange, there's been some new articles in the Chicago Tribune. Agent Orange, lethal legacy for U.S., a record of neglect. I mean, it's more than that. Poisonous defoliant still exact toll in U.S. and Vietnam. Break down your research into Agent Orange.
I have a number of years of research in toxic chemicals and their health effects. The last 4 years I've spent doing research not only in black mold, but Agent Orange. Agent Orange has a biomarker which can be tested for in a urine sample. The most important thing that would be of note is the U.S. Army Medical Research at Fort Detrick, Maryland, as well as the CDC, all agree you cannot test for this toxin in any blood sample. You can only test for it in urine, and that's done through DNA PCR. The research has shown that it's been there for a lot of years. Basically, we all know if you go before a judge and you're caught driving under the influence or using drugs, the judge will say, I want a urine sample. It's unequivocal, court proof. The test exists and has existed and is available now publicly, where you can literally pee in a jar and prove that not only do you have the toxin in your body, but you can measure the quantity of that toxin in it. And there are 101 different research articles done by Fort Detrick, Maryland, specifically attached to Chapter 34. And in that chapter, all of the research was done on U.S. military subjects. As you know, when you're in the military, basically, if they ask you to give a sample, you don't have a choice. You give a sample. But a lot of times they weren't told why, but they may have served an area where the toxin was present, and based on this research, they were able to determine that. What's important is the Department of Veterans Affairs was given a report by Admiral Zumwalt Sr. regarding the issue of Agent Orange, and he was requested to do so, I believe, at White House request. And that report was not released from declassification until a few years ago. But the problem was it was never published in the United States. It's been available in Canada, but nowhere in the United States was it found available. And that's how you came to it. Was I gave it to Doug and asked if anyone had ever seen it, and everyone was appalled because it was not published in the U.S.
And reading this report, they know how deadly this is. I mean, describe what Agent Orange really is and Agent Blue and what it does.
Okay. What most people don't know, and those of us who work with chemicals and all the other substances that are harmful, is Agent Orange basically had an orange stripe on the barrel. Back in the late 60s and 70s, when a chemical was found to be really, really hazardous, the rule was you had to put it in a barrel and pay to bury it somewhere for 1,000 years. What the U.S. government did, and the chemical companies liked, was the U.S. government said, okay, we'll make half of each barrel dioxin, call it Agent Orange, and in the other half of the barrel, that stuff we normally would ask you to bury and pay a fee for, we'll let you put in the barrel. And on top of that, in each barrel it's buried from 1 gallon or 3 or 10, depending on quantity at the time. They put a biomarker in, which was a neurotoxin. So each barrel had not only a herbicide, a pesticide, a dioxin. They added the neurotoxin to give it a biomarker so that we knew it was our chemical. And then the U.S. government, Department of Defense, said, we'll pay you Dow and all these other chemicals, and we'll get rid of your chemical for you instead of you having to pay to bury it in the U.S.
Now, let's expand on that. They put a neurotoxin in that attacks animals and people's brains, knowing what they were doing. This is all done on purpose.
I explained it publicly is there was a neurotoxin in there. Neurotoxins, as you know, are put in pesticides, herbicides, and others to kill rodents. They put enough quantity in that it wasn't just little 4-legged 2-ounce rodents. This was big rodents, 2-legged, several hundred pounds.
Bottom line, ma'am, have you seen the White House science czar's own book where he says basically kill us like rodents? This is not being done by accident. They tell the guys it's a herbicide, a defoliant, and really they're putting, neurotoxin. For those that don't know, that's what a cobra has. They're putting cobra venom in here, basically, synthetic cobra venom to attack humans. What in the world is going? And then they don't give the troops any medical care.
Well, I thought was even more is they didn't tell the truth about what they had. And in this report, it identifies that it was not diluted, and it was used off the books by those people in the brown water Navy and the blue water Navy at full strength. And then in other things, and Admiral Zumwalt says that he knew it and authorized the use, and that it wasn't recorded, but that those men would be given the same medical care whether or not they had proof of it being used, because they had guaranteed.
Now, can you talk about Zumwalt? Because I know there's about to be a bunch of big media coming out on this, and I don't want to I don't want to hurt that in any way. But you've been doing deep investigation. I mean, how much can you tell us about Zumwalt? Because you just don't have the document.